The scorching Arizona sun beat down mercilessly on the weathered wooden planks of the abandoned barn as Sarah Martinez approached its creaking door. Dust devils danced across the cracked earth, and the distant sound of wind through sagebrush was the only accompaniment to her footsteps. At 19, she carried herself with the quiet determination of someone who had learned early that survival in the frontier required both courage and caution. Sarah had arrived in the settlement of Copper Ridge 3 days ago with her father, a taciturn man known only as Martinez to the locals. He spoke little of their past, but his weathered hands and the careful way he observed everything around him suggested a history that ran deeper than most settlers who drifted through these parts. "Don't go poking around where you don't belong," he had warned her that morning, his dark eyes serious as he prepared to ride out to the neighboring town for supplies. But Sarah had noticed the way his gaze lingered on the old barn at the edge of town, positioned between the main settlement and the Navajo community that maintained a respectful distance from the growing number of white settlers. The barn door protested with a long, mournful groan as Sarah pulled it open. Shafts of sunlight cut through the dusty interior, illuminating hay bales stacked years ago and now home to field mice and cobwebs. The air was thick with the scent of old wood and dried grass. But there was something else, the faint smell of leather and paper. As her eyes adjusted to the dimmer light, Sarah noticed something peculiar about the barn's construction. The back wall seemed shorter than it should be, and when she pressed against it, she heard the hollow echo that suggested a hidden space beyond. Running her fingers along the rough wood, she found a loose board and worked it free. Behind it lay a carefully wrapped oilcloth bundle, protected from moisture and time. Her heart pounded as she lifted it out and carefully unwrapped layer after layer of preservation. Inside were documents, official papers with government seals, hand-drawn maps with careful notations, and correspondence written in both English and Spanish. But what made her breath catch were the photographs. Images of a younger version of her father standing alongside Native American leaders, all of them signing what appeared to be formal agreements. The sound of approaching horses made her quickly rewrap the documents and slip them into her satchel. She had found something significant, but she needed time to understand what it all meant and why her father had never spoken of it. That evening, by the light of an oil lamp in their modest rented room above the general store, Sarah spread the documents across the small wooden table. Her father wouldn't return until the next day, giving her time to piece together the story hidden in these papers. The correspondence revealed her father's real name, Captain Eduardo Martinez, formerly of the U.S. Army's Bureau of Indian Affairs. The documents dated from 1885 to 1890, detailing his role as a liaison officer who had worked to establish peaceful agreements between the government and various Native American tribes in the region. But these weren't just any agreements. As Sarah studied the maps and legal documents, she realized she was looking at evidence of land treaties that had never been officially ratified by Congress. Treaties that would have granted the local Navajo community legal ownership of significant portions of land that were now being claimed by railroad companies and mining interests. The photographs showed her father in his military uniform, participating in peace negotiations, sharing meals with tribal leaders, and even what appeared to be a marriage ceremony. Sarah's hands trembled as she realized the implications. Her mother, who had died when Sarah was young, had been Native American. Her father had hidden not just his past, but her own heritage. The final document was a letter in her father's handwriting, addressed to the tribal leader she recognized from the photographs, a man named Joseph Begay. In it, her father promised to keep the original copies of the treaties safe and to ensure they would be presented to the proper authorities when the time was right to secure the tribe's rightful claims. As dawn approached, Sarah understood why her father had been so secretive. These documents could change everything, not just for the Navajo community facing pressure from encroaching settlers and mining companies, but for her own identity and place in this complex web of cultures and conflicts. The weight of this knowledge pressed down on her as she carefully wrapped the documents again. She had a choice to make: honor her father's caution and wait for his return, or take action that could help people who were fighting to protect their ancestral lands. The sound of activity from the Native American settlement carried on the morning wind, children playing, adults preparing for the day's work. A community that had no idea that documentation of their legal rights lay hidden just a few hundred yards away. Sarah made her decision as the sun climbed higher that second day. She couldn't wait for her father's return, not when she had learned that representatives from the railroad company were scheduled to meet with territorial officials the following week to finalize land acquisitions that would displace the Navajo families. Carrying the carefully wrapped documents in her satchel, she walked the dusty path toward the Native American settlement. Her heart pounded with nervousness, but also with a strange sense of coming home to something she had never known she had lost. The settlement was a mixture of traditional hogans and more recent adobe structures, reflecting a community adapting to changing times while maintaining their cultural identity. Children stopped their games to watch her approach, and she felt the weight of curious and cautious gazes from adults who recognized her as the daughter of the mysterious stranger. An elderly woman emerged from one of the larger buildings, clearly someone of importance in the community. Sarah approached her respectfully. Her limited Spanish and few words of Navajo she had picked up over the years helping her request to speak with Joseph Begay. When the tribal leader appeared, Sarah's breath caught. Despite the years that had passed since the photographs were taken, she recognized him immediately. More importantly, when his eyes met hers, she saw a flicker of recognition that went beyond simply identifying her as a newcomer. "You have your mother's eyes," he said quietly in accented English, and Sarah felt tears spring to her own eyes as pieces of her identity clicked into place. With trembling hands, she unwrapped the documents and spread them on a table that the gathering crowd could see. As Joseph Begay examined the treaties and photographs, his weathered face showed a mixture of amazement, relief, and deep emotion. "Your father," he said, his voice carrying across the now silent group, "was a man of honor who risked his career and his safety to ensure these agreements were preserved. We had feared they were lost forever when he disappeared from military service." The crowd pressed closer as Joseph explained the significance of the documents, proof of legal agreements that had been buried in bureaucratic red tape and political maneuvering, but which established the tribe's rightful claims to lands that mining companies now sought to take. But the most powerful moment came when Joseph Begay stood and addressed the gathered community in Navajo, then turned to Sarah. "You are family," he said simply. "Your mother was my daughter, and you are the grandchild we thought lost to us forever. You have brought us more than legal documents. You have brought us hope and the return of family." As understanding rippled through the crowd, Sarah watched as respect, gratitude, and recognition transformed the faces around her. Some of the older community members who had known her mother approached with tears in their eyes to welcome her home. The moment when several of the tribal elders lowered themselves in traditional gestures of respect and gratitude was not about mystical reverence, but about genuine appreciation for a young woman who had chosen to honor her heritage and help her community claim their rightful place in a changing world. When her father returned that evening to find Sarah missing from their room, he knew exactly where to look. He found her sitting around a fire with her newly discovered family, learning songs her mother had once sung, and planning how to present the legal documents to territorial authorities in a way that would finally secure justice for her people. The mysterious stranger's daughter had indeed changed everything, not through supernatural means, but through the very human courage to choose connection over fear, truth over secrecy, and justice over convenience. In the firelight, surrounded by family she had never known she had, Sarah Martinez finally understood who she was meant to be.